Welcome to episode 4 of Revising the Script. Today we're going to read the first page of Den Trejde Verden by J.D. Price. As always, we'll read through it, we'll discuss what's working, what's not working, then we'll revise it and reflect on how successful we were. Okay. Exterior unknown cold planet, night. An old, rough-looking, retro-futuristic ship bearing the Norwegian flag on its side slowly sets down in the middle of an icy, snowy valley. A violent snowstorm rushes by, blowing the snow sideways, nearly obscuring the ship. Interior Norwegian ship continuous. The ship's 6 occupants all sit strewn about the cabin. A roughened-looking big guy, dark hair, late 50s. This is Loberg. A gentle but firm-looking woman, brown hair, mid-30s. This is Varland. 2 nearly identical twins, male, light blonde, moppy hair, mid-20s. These are the Mejde twins, Emil and Eric. A mid-aged, short, black-haired guy, early 40s. This is Koss. And a bright-eyed, long-coat German shepherd. This is a dog. Koss sits at an old-looking computer, reading some numbers appearing on the screen. Loberg walks over to him. Give me some readings. Exterior unknown cold planet valley, from mountain, continuous. A blue electric pulse shoots out from underneath the ship, spreading across the valley. A strange silhouette enters the frame, covered in shadow, looking down to the ship as it reads the planet. It holds a primitive spear, its cat-like eyes almost seeming to glow, its pupils narrow as it looks upon the ship. Alright, that's the first page. So I like this. I like that we get a sense of atmosphere. It's this cold, icy planet. We have a storm going on. We have this mysterious alien creature observing the ship. And then we are introducing the crew. I think the crew introductions could use the most work. And I think we can set more of a tone and set the stage slightly better in this opening paragraph. So let's get to it. To start off, I'm going to call this an ice planet. So let's look at how this first sentence unfolds. Picture what the sentence is telling us. So what I'm seeing first is a funky old ship. Then I see the Norwegian flag on its side. Then I see the valley. I think I'd prefer it if I saw the environment first and the ship entered the valley. I want a very clear picture in my mind's eye. So starting on the ship and then noting the flag and then seeing the valley feels a little clunky to me. Now there is an option of doing it this way if we were to start on the ship flying through some clouds and then we reveal the valley as the ship enters the valley. You could go either way on this. I think I'm going to go with seeing the valley first and having the ship enter. So let's set the scene to start. Let's say a raging snowstorm blows across a moonlit valley blanketed by a thick layer of ice. I really enjoy the type of scene description that reveals information very deliberately. So let's play with that. Let's say in the midst of the flurry, a distant light appears. And we can tease it out more. The light gets brighter and brighter until, and now we'll describe the ship. An old, rough-looking, retro-futuristic ship. I think I'm going to go with holding off on this description a little bit. I'm going to have the ship land. I'm going to finish the action out, and then we can embellish the detail of the script. So why don't we say a well-traveled spaceship pierces the storm. Coasts into the valley and lands with a clunk on the icy tundra. Okay, now we're done with our action. Let's describe this ship. So I like the idea that we're having trouble seeing the ship through the snowstorm, so let's continue with that. We could say, although difficult to see through the sleet. The ship is rough around the edges and in need of some maintenance. And then we'll add the flag. Painted across its metallic body is a Norwegian flag. What I like about this update is that this opening feels slightly more cinematic. And maybe it's a little cliche. We've all seen alien movies where a ship enters an alien planet and lands in a big open space. I do like that it's in the midst of this snowstorm, and it's a nice touch that this ship is worn down and rough around the edges. But hopefully what I've done with this revision is laid out the elements of the scene in a way that is easier to picture and provides building blocks of the world, then the action, then the description of the ship. And hopefully it feels natural and is clear. Okay, let's look at the next scene. Here's my issue with this scene. What is actually happening here? I understand that JD is describing the crew members, but what does this really look like in the movie? What would the director point his camera at? So all these crew members are just sitting around a space that's not described, and there's a shot of each of them as they're just sitting there. Generally, we want to introduce characters through some form of action or motivation. If we're just describing this translates to just 5 or 6 shots of each crew member and the dog. And so we're going to introduce our characters at some point when they have a desire or are acting within the world, engaging the world. But if they're just sitting around, unless that's crucial to the story, which I'm guessing it's not, I think we can do this in a better way. So I'm going to take some liberties here and just introduce Loberg and Koss, since they're the only characters that are interacting, and since I'm guessing we can introduce these other characters at a more opportune time. So let's start with Loberg. What is a roughened looking big guy? Why don't we say brute? A brute of a man. Loberg. Let's put character names in all caps the first time you introduce them. Late 50s. And then let's say he has a crew cut to make it a little more specific. And maybe if he's roughened looking, maybe he has leathery skin. And let's say he's in some type of uniform. So how about, and a khaki spacesuit. The official crew uniform. And maybe we can paint the space ever so slightly. Walks across a dimly lit command center. Maybe cockpit, I don't know the correct terminology. Command center for now is fine. Toward let's say Koss. Okay, this is pretty sparse description. Black-haired guy, early 40s. So let's just lean into our cliche, and if he's sitting in front of computers, let's just say he's a frail man in his late 40s with dark hair and pale skin, sitting in front of a console made up of several monitors and hundreds of blinking lights. Pretty standard, fine for now. And then Loberg says, give me some readings. Okay. Exterior cold planet from mountain. I think we can just describe this in our scene description. So we can just say exterior ice planet, continuous. So we can start from the perspective of the mountaintop. So we can say from a distant mountaintop, the ship appears tiny and fragile. We can lean into that more. A speck of debris amongst an endless sheet of ice. So instead of just stating from mountaintop in the slug line, now what we can do is hopefully paint a specific image, hopefully a poetic image of this tiny little ship in the midst of all of this ice. A blue electric pulse shoots out from underneath the ship, spreading across the valley. I like that. So why don't we start from beneath the ship? A blue, I think we can just say pulse, shoots out, spreads. Why don't we say ripples? Shoots out and ripples across the valley. A strange silhouette enters the frame, covered in shadow. That's a little redundant. I think that's what silhouette implies. Looking down to the ship as it reads the planet. So I think we know that the ship is, because Loberg is saying this, and then we have this blue pulse, I don't think we need to state reading the planet again. But we can have fun introducing this strange silhouette. So why don't we say, out of the darkness, and let's just describe it so it feels strange instead of saying it's strange. A silhouetted figure slinks along the mountaintop. So hopefully that feels strange. And pauses. Let's spell it right out. Presumably to get a look at the activity below. So let's think about the images we're conveying to the reader. So we're up on this mountaintop, we're looking down at this ship. This silhouetted creature crosses frame, and now if we're going to see its eyes, we're cutting around to the front of the figure. How could we do that? We could say the figure is cloaked in shadow, but we're able to identify a primitive spear and let's see, cat-like. Let's just say a pair of eyes, since cats are Earth-like and we're dealing with an alien. How about, and a pair of large glowing eyes. I don't know what seeming to glow is, so let's just say they're glowing. And then they're narrowing down. So a pair of large glowing eyes that focus and narrow down as another pulse emanates from the ship below. All right. Let's read our revision here. Exterior ice planet, night. A raging snowstorm blows across a moonlit valley blanketed by a thick layer of ice. In the midst of the flurry, a distant light appears. The light gets brighter and brighter until a well-traveled spaceship pierces the storm, coasts into the valley, and lands with a clunk on the icy tundra. Although difficult to see through the sleet, the ship is rough around the edges and in need of some maintenance. Painted across its metallic body is a Norwegian flag. Interior Norwegian ship continuous. A brute of a man, Loberg, late 50s, with a crew cut, leathery skin, and a khaki spacesuit, the official crew uniform, walks across a dimly lit command center toward Kos, a frail man in his late 40s with dark hair and pale skin, sitting in front of a console made up of several monitors and hundreds of blinking lights. Give me some readings. Exterior ice planet continuous. From a distant mountaintop, the ship appears tiny and fragile, a speck of debris amongst an endless sheet of ice. From beneath the ship, a blue pulse shoots out and ripples across the valley. Out of the darkness, a silhouetted figure slinks along the mountaintop and pauses, presumably to get a look at the activity below. The figure is cloaked in shadow, but we're able to identify a primitive spear and a pair of large glowing eyes that focus and narrow down as another pulse emanates from the ship below. So, what have we done here? Hopefully we've made this opening more visual and allowed our audience to clearly picture what's happening. We've focused in on the characters who are actually doing something and not just sitting around. Again, I think there would be a better opportunity to introduce those characters later on. If it is necessary to introduce all those characters at once, you probably want to have them interacting. I think a great example of this is the opening of Boogie Nights, which very quickly introduces an entire ensemble cast where they're walking around a nightclub, one character is leading you to the next, they're all talking to each other, they're all interacting, and you're getting a very quick overview of who these people are and their dynamics between each other. The issue here was that we were just getting descriptions of characters that were just sitting there. So again, we want something where our characters are engaging with the world and giving us a sense of who they are by dramatically demonstrating how they interact with people, how they talk to people, how they look at people, etc. And then with the end here, hopefully we've again painted our scene in a more visual way, allowed our audience to clearly picture the scenario, and then hopefully we've made you feel like this alien creature is strange and not just told you it's strange. Before we go, I just got curious about, I wonder how the Wachowskis introduced the Nebuchadnezzar in The Matrix. Let's look that up real quick. Okay, here we have the Matrix script where Neo first wakes up in the Nebuchadnezzar, and the first description, it looks like, of the ship is this. It is a swamp of bizarre electronic equipment. Vines of coaxial hang and snake to and from huge monolithic battery slabs. A black portable satellite dish and banks of life systems and computer monitors. What's great about this is that even if you can't picture everything that's being described here, you get the sense, which is that it's just a giant mess, which is true to the movie. That's what it looks like, right? It's just, it's like someone opened up a computer and all these wires are hanging out. So that's ideally what could be done here, unless we're coming back to it later. But the first time we're really spending any time in the ship, if we could really paint the scene and give the audience the sense of what the interior looks like, based on the description of the exterior, I'm going to guess it's retro and old and funky and dusty and things don't fit right. So a paragraph describing that would also work really well. Okay, thank you so much for watching episode 4. And if you'd like to submit your script for an episode, please email revisingthescript@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.